Looking for amazing products to help boost your first class lifestyle? Then head over to firstclasslifeshop.com, where you can treat yourself to personal development books and workbooks, lifestyle affirmation cards, adult coloring books, mugs, notebooks, hoodies, t-shirts, leggings, and more. All products were designed to help you master your mindset, walk in your purpose, and live your first class life because you deserve it. So treat yourself today at firstclasslifeshop.com. Again, that's firstclasslifeshop.com.
Reflective. And so I think that, one of my favorite quotes is that, an unexamined life is not worth living. And so in general, It's kind of like you need to, I think we get, particularly in 2022, this era, we get seduced with just doing stuff, and it's kind of like we're almost socially rewarded for kind of always being in motion, hustle, grind, even if we're not actively, nobody ever comes back. So one of my biggest examples is this whole conversation, at least in the entrepreneur verse, around 6-figure, 7 figures and stuff like that. So I think sometimes we get so seduced with vanity metrics. So it's hey, I did 6 figures, but how much did you keep? How much did you invest?
You're listening to the First Class Life Show, hosted by Lindsey Vertner, a holistic personal development show for high-achieving leaders who desire to maximize their impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So grab a drink, grab your notebook, and let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of the First Class Life Show, and I am super excited, as I always am, because our guests are phenomenal, but this one is dually phenomenal. Can I say that? Dually, triply, doubly, quadruply phenomenal. The Brian J. Olds is here in the First Class Life Studios, and I'm excited because he is always dropping gems, and he has built an empire with Black Speakers Network. But you can read all about that in the description. For now, we're going to hop right into the discussion. Brian, welcome to the First Class Life Show. How are you?
Excited. Listen, nobody ever gets the chance to sing my name in a intro, so I think I'm gonna add that to my contracts from now on. It must be sang. It can't just say it. Can't just say it. But yeah, I'm excited to be here. First Class Life. I am looking forward to talking to this network of high achievers, Lindsey. And you know how we do. We keep it 100. So I'm excited to share.
Yes. So I know how phenomenal you are and with everything you've created, but I need you to tell the folks, who is Brian really? Take us back. Let us in your world. Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you, Brian?
Oh yeah, we can absolutely do that. So I always tell people, I'm the skinny kid from Baltimore. And I'm still even broadcasting live right now from Baltimore. And listen, I grew up and really just with this desire, this intense fascination of the world. I was a nerd, I love science, I love space. And so I wanted to be kind of like the modern day Elon Musk. That was my goal. I wanted to be an aerospace engineer, wanted to work for NASA, wanted to go to space camp. My parents couldn't, or my mom specifically, I was raised as, single parent household, like so many folks are. And so I had that whole latchkey, kid experience. And so I've been always pretty independent, Lindsey, and pretty mature. I had a cool childhood, just growing up inner city Baltimore, made it through. But I had this goal of being an engineer. And so I made it through high school, got into college, ended up actually going to community college for 2 years through a scholarship program that took me on my first plane ride, which was out of the country. I spent the summer in Seville, Spain, studying Spanish and Spanish culture. So you got this, again, little skinny Black kid from Baltimore, super nerdy, just popping around, trying to figure out life. And I eventually made it all the way to Morgan State University, which for those that aren't familiar is a HBCU. So any HBCU in the house, what's up? But made it to Morgan State University. And Lindsey, Morgan State has one of the best engineering schools in the country. It's actually credited for producing some of the best and brightest Black engineers in the world. And so I know, and I like made it in. Little did I know there was a little class for me just waiting around the curve called Calculus 2. And I don't know if anybody, Lindsey, I don't know if you've gone through, those advanced math, but it's kind of like you can't like make it, you can't kind of skate your way through one and expect to do well. Like it all builds on each other. And so I basically was like, let me just go see what the School of Business is talking about, because I don't think I'm going to make it here. And, for anybody that's building a first class life, Lindsey, I'm sure, we've had that experience where you just hit like a brick wall and you spend so much time thinking you're going to go in one direction and life was like, and then you have to figure things out. Mm-hmm. So here I am in college, transferred to business, feeling like a failure, feeling like, and by the way, I was not doing great in business school either. I failed accounting twice. So somehow me and math, we just, it wasn't gelling, but it was there that I actually ran into a young lady who decided to start a weird sounding club called Toastmasters at Morgan State University. And for those who aren't familiar, Toastmasters is an organization that's been around since, I believe, like the early 1940s. And it's dedicated to helping you improve your public speaking skills. And I said, you know what? I didn't make it as an engineer. I had done a little bit of speaking, but I knew that speaking was one of those things. That was the mountain that I needed to climb in order to improve my confidence, in order to open up doors in the future. So I said, why not? I'll go ahead and jump into this Toastmasters thing. And that kind of began this journey that, helped me to gain more confidence through sweaty palms, shaky voices, almost walking out the room. Like one speech turned into two, turned into four turned into 10. Before you knew it, Lindsey, I could not shut up. Like I was speaking like all over the city, and eventually, made it into my dream job. And, that was kind of the genesis of Black Speakers Network there. But, when I tell people who I am, skinny kid from Baltimore. One of my speeches I did in Toastmasters was called Twisted Statistics, because I talk about, how a third of people that look like me either end up, in jail or not living past 25, or, succumbing to any number of, really tragic challenges. It's a reason why they call the hood the trap. Like it's you literally sometimes don't make it out. And so through all of those odds and many more that we can probably get into, I'm excited to be able to be here.
Listen, there were so many directions that we can go from just what you said right there. The fear, the pivoting, the being the outlier, and that's what came out. So I'm going to stop right there and hop over to that, because at the very beginning, you said that you were the nerdy one, and I can relate to that because I felt like the nerdy one. I was skinny and lanky and tall, and I like to read books and do crossword puzzles and all of those things. But nerd wasn't always as cool as it is right now. So I can only imagine being from Be More in the hood and have that nerd-like personality. So that's going to lead right into the fear piece. But for now, how do you feel that affected your dynamics as a child? Were you teased for being the nerd, or were you like, oh, it's the nerd Brian, come on over? Like, tell us about that piece.
Yeah, so I think there's different levels of like nerdiness, right? And so for me, I don't know if I specifically got picked on for being a nerd. I think I got picked on for almost like being like trying too hard to keep a low profile. Like I remember when I first got to high school and, going into a new atmosphere. I went to a really large high school in the inner city, and my entire goal was like to keep a low profile. Like, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. Like, I kind of wanted to like keep to myself. And I don't know if you know kids or ever had kids or been a kid, but that strategy doesn't work because you kind of got to pick a side at some point. And so if you're too quiet, people assume that you're either a pushover or whatever. So you got people that like want to test you all the time. And so that was kind of that part. Meanwhile, I wasn't the type of nerd that was like, people were like threatening to have me do that homework and stuff like that. Like, I was just like, I like to watch like Power Rangers and anime and wrestling. And I would just kind of like I was like in my own world. And on top of that, the thing I didn't mention was, that kind of led to this, me discovering that I was an introvert. And I really kind of thrive when I'm able to get off into environments where, I'm by myself. Not that I don't like to be around people, but, when stuff gets too loud or it's kind of, too many people or it's too many things vying for my attention, I tend to like shift away. So all of those things kind of combined, I think it just kind of led me to a point where I had to struggle to kind of figure out, because most of the world is not really, it's probably a little bit better now, but in general, most of the world is built for extrovert. We kind of reward people who, speak out more, people that, are more assertive. It's seen as like leadership and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of qualities to the quiet ones, to the people that, aren't as boisterous or, that take time to reflect and think and can come back with an amazing plan or amazing contributions. But, it could be seen both in academia as well as in organizations from a career perspective as, you're not a team player, or, you're not contributing or whatever, or as a threat to other people, because that's the kind of way it's set up. So I think navigating that has been kind of like the biggest struggle, Lindsey, or at least it was. And I think Toastmasters gave me an opportunity to really find my own voice, so to speak. And by having a skill that I could call upon, because that's really all speaking is. It's a skill. It's not like, you have to be born, like nobody's born with this, incredible, eloquence or able to craft a story, or you learn all of that as you go. And certainly some people are more outgoing, have a personality that tends to shine towards the spotlight, looking at you, Lindsey. But in general, like, I think in general, people are wanting to, these are things that you can learn over time. So.
Yes, I love that. And I like that you said it's a skill that you develop over time, because even like, so sometimes people are, I got the gift of gab or something like that. But just because you can speak doesn't mean like you're making an impact with your words. Actually, I just said something similar to that in a Clubhouse room yesterday. I was like, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. And so just developing that skill and just honing your talent and things like that. So you mentioned being an introvert and having to navigate that. What advice would you give to the leaders that are listening that are more introverted and do feel like, geez Louise, as a leader in this position, or desiring to be the leader that I know that I'm called to be, like, how can I stay true and authentic to myself while being an introvert?
Yeah. So, it's funny being, leading an organization like Black Speakers Network and, having this focus on supporting people to speak more and share their voice. What we find is that, some of the most effective leadership really doesn't start with, speaking or having a stage or being as loud as possible. It actually starts with listening. And so I think listening is perhaps utilized and certainly underappreciated skill when it comes to, high performance and leadership. And there's listening across multiple domains. I think first and foremost is from a individual perspective, individual leadership perspective, it's listening to yourself, understanding your own temperament, your own personality, and not feeling this like external pressure to try to, mold into like other things. And sometimes it could be challenging. If you're a leader within an organization, we always talk about like organizational culture, and that could be challenging because you may feel, pressure to conform to, what other people deem as what it takes to succeed or even survive in, certain corporate environments, whether that's, feeling like you need to, work a certain amount of hours above and beyond what you normally do, or, participate in social activities that, you may not even necessarily want to be there, stuff like that, or you just may have other obligations to preclude that. So I think kind of listening to yourself and understanding like what you personally need to survive and thrive is very, very important. And that's why I think, things like, mental health come into play, making sure that you have somebody, you have a network, a support system that will allow you to just keep a pulse on your internal barometer of what's important. So I think that's super critical, is like being able to listen to yourself, having really intentional like self-care practices. Lindsey, I think you're a great, example of that, making sure I actually have a thing on my wall right here. It's called Brian, like the 3 reminders. And the first reminder is, put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on anyone else, just like when you're getting on a plane, which you and I love to do, Lindsey, getting on planes, going places. They always say that, put the oxygen mask on yourself, because if you go down, you can't help anybody else. So I think that's first. And then the second part of listening is really staying attuned to those around you. And I think, realizing that, everybody's going to bring something different to the table. And so if you are an introvert leader and, you're, attempting to understand other people, just realize that, everyone doesn't have to absorb information the way you absorb it. Everyone's not going to, make decisions at the speed in which, you make decisions. Everyone may not be, comfortable, or not even necessarily comfortable, but everyone may not necessarily gravitate to communicating in the style in which you do. Some people articulate ideas and opportunities in a written format far better than they would if you just were standing in front of them and like, well, just tell me your idea. Just give it to me. Like, they need time to consolidate it and give it back. And so I think, having those type of conversations, and again, asking the right questions and being willing to listen to the needs of your team, the needs of your colleagues, even, people that you work for, managing up in a corporate environment, or if you're an entrepreneur, doing the same thing for your stakeholders and your partners is extremely important. And so while we're all about speaking, Lindsey, I think it should start with a healthy appreciation for listening.
Yes. That is often underappreciated until you're not being listened to. And then it's like, oh, and sometimes we get accustomed to, being tuned out, and that's not the way that we want to live at all. So what advice would you give on ways to improve your listening skills?
Yeah. So I think what's funny is that in general, most people are, if you're struggling with listening, I think one of the things that kind of creeps up most often is that you kind of almost have to separate your, because when you're listening to someone talk, if you are already kind of thinking about what you're going to say next, then you're not fully listening. If you got a response the minute that they stop talking, or if you find yourself like cutting people off, then you're probably not really listening. And so I think some of the things that you could do to kind of reverse that is, one, resist the temptation to cut people off. Like if you find yourself doing that, and that's a coachable skill. Like, when you're working, Lindsey, I know you work with like high performance leaders, that's a skill that, because a lot of it is probably unconscious. So I would say, pay attention to that, and have your people in your circle like hold you accountable. Like the people, even if you're just talking to, like your family members or your friends, you can give other people permission to hold you accountable. Be like, hey, do I ever cut you off during, conversations? And if so, be like, let me know the next time I do that. So that way you can kind of like mimic that. The other thing you can do is, I think, if you find yourself in these kind of like one-sided conversations where you're talking and you're talking, like if I say something, Lindsey, like right now in this conversation, it's a podcast interview, so it's a perfect masterclass on this, but I'm saying something, you're asking a question. I ask a question, you say something, and so a conversation when you're seeking to understand should be this volley of back and forth. There should be an equal number of questions and not just like stuff directed at you. And so just pay attention to the number of questions that you're asking throughout the conversation versus just talking to talk. Because 9 times out of 10, people, and that's why to this day, Lindsey, I think one of the greatest books, if you have not read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, it's old. It's steeped.
Classic.
It's a classic. It's steeped with wisdom. And why is that? Is because technology continues to change. World geopolitics continue to change. The atmosphere, the planet, global warming and all that's changing around us. But the thing that has remained relatively consistent for the past couple hundred, if not couple thousand years, is human behavior, human dynamics. And that book is probably the best summary encapsulation without, going to go get a degree in psychology of human behavior. Like there's just fundamental things, Lindsey, that have not changed, and they're probably not going to change anytime in our lifetimes. Things like, the sweetest sound to someone is, the sound of their own name.
Their name.
Yeah. So I think little things like that, and just, paying attention to, those type of dynamics are important. And they're not just important from a, interpersonal communication perspective. They're also important from a marketing perspective. If you're an entrepreneur, seek first to, understand before being understood. Like those are the type of things. If I go to your website, or if I'm, listening to your presentation, if I don't feel understood first, then the likelihood that I'm going to buy something from you it shrinks dramatically. And so I think those fundamentals that were written 150 years ago are still applicable today if we pick them up and embrace them.
Listen, that is so good. So 2 things that I thought about as you were speaking was, no matter what level you're at, you could always have that room for improvement, because even with my listening skills, with what I do as a coach and with my background in therapy and all of those things, sometimes I catch myself just the same as anyone else. Perfect example with my husband just a couple of days ago, I started to say something and then I stopped. And then he started to like question what I was about to say. And I was like, no, I intentionally stopped myself to let you finish talking. But I caught myself in the moment. And then I had to explain what was happening, because he was like, wait, what? But, just allowing ourselves that grace and being self-aware to recognize when we're doing it. And then, like you said, having that accountability from those around you to say, hey, if I cut you off, please let me know so I can work on it and correct it. And then you were talking about, just being authentic and not having those prepared answers. And I literally just had an interaction with someone in my DMs, and they were talking and asking me questions, and I could already kind of sense that they wanted to sell me something. But then they were like, have you ever thought about speaking on stages? Record skip, right? I was like, clearly, I even called him out on it. I was like, you must be pretty busy yourself, because I've mentioned speaking twice already in this thread, and it's in my bio. So
Listen.
Like, geez Louise. And this you had the ability to scroll back and read through it. It wasn't like, we were speaking and you missed it. No, you could read it. I said it twice already. And it says coach speaker.
Somebody copy and paste in too fast.
Yes, yes. And so just developing and honing those listening skills are so crucial no matter what you do, personally, professionally, in all the areas of life. So I'm glad you brought that up. I also wanted to ask you, what are some ways that you practice self-care? And has it always been easy for you to implement self-care, or did you have to, really get over some obstacles to start to implement self-care?
No, listen, this has been a journey, Lindsey. So I'll be happy to deep dive into my, current self-care practices, which is always evolving. So number one, therapy. So just some context. So I mentioned I went to Morgan State. I ended up graduating, made it into corporate America. And so I spent 11 years. I'm part of what they call, I guess, geriatric millennials now. So, that's what I didn't come up with it, but so I'm an older millennial, let's say that. And so because of that, it's, most of us, we change jobs and careers like every 2 to 3 years. Some of us like every, 12 to 18 months, perhaps. I stayed at the same company for 11 years. I started a week before I walked across stage at Morgan State University and graduating, and I didn't leave until April 12th of 2019 at 5:38 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 62 degrees outside, all that good stuff. So
the weather outside was frightful.
But the freedom was so delightful. But, I just point that out to say that I think the experience, I've been in both places. I've been full-time employee, and I've had a number of, jobs within that company. And now juxtaposed to going on my, I guess, third year of full-time entrepreneurship and, 6th year of general entrepreneurship is there's a lot there to kind of unpack. One of the things I recognized a little bit later than I would have liked, but, I believe I'd been looking for a therapist since 2000 and maybe 17. And there was like some false starts. And so, I tried somebody, didn't work out. Tried another person, didn't work out. So this is kind of like my third and final time before I found the therapist I had now. And she's been great. So I've been rocking with her since, I believe, like the end of 2018 or like early 2019. And she was instrumental in really helping me become or kind of lay the foundation of these self-care practices. So that's that, I do it every 2 weeks. Even if I feel like don't showing up, even if I feel like canceling, like I just show up and we just talk. So that's been absolutely incredible. The other thing that I recognized that I really needed was to have just outlets outside of, what I was doing for work, outside of what I was, doing with BSN. And so just having like a list of things that I could do myself. I didn't have to wait on anybody else. I didn't have to get a friend group together. Like I didn't have to wait on people's schedules to clear up, like things that I could absolutely control myself. So whether that's going like go-kart racing or, checking out, there's like like an indoor like rock climbing place here in Maryland that you could go to. And for a while I was, aggressively building my business, I was like, video games, don't need that. I've never been like a gamer, like that. But one of the things I recognize is that from a self-care perspective, like sometimes, once you have I have a PlayStation, 4, with like 5 games, and so if I just need to turn my brain off, I could do that. Like I don't have to physically go anywhere. It could be 2:00 in the morning or 2:00 in the afternoon, and I could put my headphones on and just play, and I'm fine. So things like that where, and I'm not saying that, folks need to do those exact things, but I do think that having intentional self-care practices of things that are super accessible and that don't require other people or are economically kind of responsible as well, are really, really good. And then the third thing that I'll probably touch on is just like physical care. And so for me, again, I was the skinny kid from Baltimore. Like I was always like, they would tease me in elementary school, like skin and bones, like that was my name. So I remember I had, I still wear like a size 12, but I've been wearing like a size 12 since like middle school. So I had big feet, little skinny frame, and just like walking around, long head, all this other stuff. And throughout corporate, I walked into my corporate career. I believe I might have weighed like like 135 pounds, something like that. Maybe 145, like soaking wet. I'm 6'2". So 6'2", 145 pounds, not very heavy. I was underweight.
I can even picture you at that weight.
Oh, I got pictures. They're around here somewhere. But yeah, so just scroll through my Facebook. But yeah, super skinny. By the time I left, I was still 6'2", but now I think my max weight was like 240 to like 245 or something like that. So I gained like literally 100 pounds over 11 years. And, metabolism slowed down and all this other stuff. So like my physical care became less of a priority because, trying to, maintain a hustle, trying to build a business, go to work, have relationships, like do all these things, like the personal care, like caring for my nutrition and health just kept slipping further down in order of priority. And so when I left, I was like, okay, my health is going to be like a major priority. And so now, just working out a couple of days a week, paying attention to, what I eat, making sure I get adequate rest, keeping like a bottle of water. This bottle of water goes with me like everywhere, like things like that to make sure that my physical body is able to keep up with all the like ideas and stuff coming out of my head is super important. So I would say those three things, the therapy, having accessible self-care practices that I can do at any given time, and also having a renewed focus on my physical health have been the three, major keys in order to, kind of help me usher in this first class life.
Listen, can we talk about holistic, okay? Because what I heard you say was therapy, that was your mental, and then self-care was your emotional, and then obviously physical is your physical. So you had your mental, emotional, and physical things in check to allow you to thrive and improve and maximize the impact that you are making in this world. And, that was just so good, Brian. That was so good. Now, I want to ask you about the therapy piece because one, as much as it's grown, it is still very taboo, at least in the Black community or the people of color community. And so what did that look like for you to decide to go to therapy? And kudos to you, I also want to say, because most people would try once and be like, oh, it didn't work, and then give up, especially with where we come from. But the fact that you tried 3 times, and I'm so glad that that third one worked out because you were about to give up, but you didn't. So I'm grateful for your therapist. I'm grateful for you and your therapist. But tell us about that journey in making that decision to go to therapy.
Yeah.
Are you loving the First Class Live show? Then join our private Patreon community. Not only will you help to support our ability to provide you with great content, but you can also get exclusive perks like bonus videos and resources, discounts, episode transcripts, and more. So what are you waiting for? Join today at patreon.com/First Class Life. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/First Class Life.
Yeah, so I do applaud the progress that at least over the last 10 years I've seen with kind of destigmatizing, the entire mental health conversation. So I think the kind of beginnings of that is, for one, just making it more accessible. I do think, so I'll just kind of go off a list of concerns and things that I went through and how I overcame them in no specific order. First one is cost. Like, I think there's this kind of assumption that any sort of like healthcare services is going to be expensive, and that mental health, particularly, is kind of like, particularly if you're in a place where, you're trying to make every dollar count. It's kind of like, okay, I have these bills, like I don't need another bill on top of that. And so this year I had a really positive experience of doing being a campaign ambassador with the Maryland Healthcare Exchange. And so as a part of that process, I learned a lot about every state, I believe, in the United States goes through an open enrollment process, Lindsey, where, starting in November, you can, even if, you can shop for healthcare coverage and find a plan that works for you, even if you don't have a qualifying life event. So most people, if you lose a job or, something happens, if you have a child, like, throughout the year, that unless you have a qualifying life event, you get married or get divorced and stuff like that, you can get new healthcare insurance. But there's a period, between November and January where everybody, regardless of what's going on in their life, you can get new health insurance. And so one of the things that we did was we did an entire panel on Black mental health back in November for that reason, because a lot of times people don't realize is that when you're shopping for health insurance, a lot of healthcare plans kind of build that in, and a lot of them are low cost or no cost. So for me, the therapy sessions are free. Because my healthcare plan covers it at 100%. So I don't pay anything out of pocket to go to therapy. And that's a huge benefit, because now I don't have to be thinking about, oh, well, where's this money going to come from? Like, it's already there. So that's number one. So, if that's a concern, take a close look. A lot of us may already have significant coverage within our existing healthcare plans that have mental health, because it's becoming so much of a priority, particularly if you're in some sort of company sponsored plan. More than likely, they built that in because organizations are realizing more and more that, if employees are struggling with, stress, anxiety, or any other number of issues that could be addressed by going to therapy, then that's something that makes sense for the overall health of their employee population. But I would just say, just be mindful of that. The second thing I struggled with originally, and this is the reason why the first two mental health practitioners didn't work out. I do believe that there is a benefit if you are a person of color, particularly as a Black man or perhaps a Black woman, to seek out a therapist of color, if possible. I do think that there are a lot of, nuances to our experience, be it like life experience or, some of the things we may be experiencing professionally that, or even, in relationships or just family dynamics. Like, there's a lot of things that can come up that will make it easier, I think, to open up, as well as to be understood and have someone to help you navigate it if they also are, if they look like you. So that made it a lot easier. So I was very, I was very intentional on wanting to find a Black therapist that could help me. And so I think that was huge. That was absolutely huge. And then I think the third thing is scheduling. And so a lot of times people are like, well, where's this even going to fit? And for me, initially, that was a challenge too, because I was like, man, how am I going to drive, to this place? Like, if it's clear across town or whatever. And so I really wanted to make sure that the therapist I selected was geographically accessible, Lindsey. And so at the time, I was living in a place called Beltsville, Maryland. And so she was literally a couple minutes away. But throughout the pandemic, we pretty much shut down the in-person therapy and switched over to virtual. And I think that's probably been the case with, most mental health practitioners, there's some sort of like telehealth option. And so I would just recommend, even once we're done with the pandemic and everything's back to normal, I would just really recommend that folks see if telehealth is an option with the therapist that you are looking at, because if schedules get crazy or whatever, if you can't come in person, then, you go right to a portal and then you can still keep up that consistency, because I think once you lose like a couple of sessions, you start to lose momentum. So those would be the three things, like, take a look at your health insurance plan and make sure that, if cost is a factor, it might not be for you. Or if it is, then, you have an opportunity at least once a year to reevaluate that. Number two, if you're a person of color, try to seek out. I think there's some resources out there that there are whole directories kind of dedicated to Black and Brown mental health professionals, if that's what you're looking for. So you could find that. And then number three, just make sure that, telehealth, that there are, some flexible options when it comes to making sure that you can, keep up with those appointments, like, telehealth.
Yes, absolutely. Listen, I'm a little jealous that yours are free, but I'm not going to complain because my copay is $30.
But that's not bad. That is not bad. Like, I can't imagine, because we go out and spend we blow $30 on all types of foolishness, for real. Like, and so that's like 2 cups of coffee or whatever. So that's fine.
Most definitely. Yes. And then, I actually, when I very first started going to therapy, what was available as far as the openings and the time slots, then I made my schedule around that. And I know everybody doesn't have that flexibility, but definitely it's something that should be prioritized by any means necessary before you are forced into some other situation that costs more money or that costs more time, or, that really knocks the wind out of you. So being prepared, I love that. And then I like how you mentioned that you still go to therapy, like even if nothing is necessarily like happening at the moment, like you keep up your appointments because it is definitely a preventative measure. We all need it to heal our past traumas and negative experiences. But even when we're not going through the things, it can still help us to just, like you said, have that person to talk to, that unbiased person to just talk out and process through the things that you are going through. And then, just keeping up that momentum so that you can stay at your maximum. And if an obstacle were to arise, you can knock it out a lot faster than if you haven't been to therapy ever, or if you stopped going 2 or 3 years ago, type of thing. So thank you for that insight.
Yes.
So I have a game. I love my games. We got to have fun here in the First Class Life Show. And this one is called First Class Favorites, okay? I feel like, you remember Bankhead Bounce? Because that's what this just gave me. First Class Favorites. First class. Hey.
Let's get it.
So how this works, let me pull up my handy dandy stopwatch. How this works is really simple. I'm going to say, what is your favorite? And you're going to fill in the blank. Okay. But you have to answer in 10 seconds or less. Okay?
Easy.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what we like to think until that buzzer goes off. Speaking of buzzer, for those of you that are tuned in right now, feel free to make a game of First Class Favorites. And if our lovely Brian J. Olds misses the buzzer, then you got to do a push-up or a pull-up or a burpee or a suicide, the exercise.
Yeah.
We're talking about mental health. Let me be clear. A suicide, the exercise where you got to run the lines. Or, if you like to live life on the wild side, take a shot. All right. So let's get it poppin'. We'll start with something easy. What is your favorite season? Go.
Summer. I was born in August.
We like it.
Born in August. Yes.
Oh, what part of August? Are you a Leo?
I am. I think we discussed it. It was August 14th. And yeah, I'm in Leo season in effect when it comes around.
Listen, all the Leos in my life, okay? All right. What's your favorite color? Go.
you know, you probably tell all around me, but it is blue. The blue chair, BSN blue, speak up blue, everything's blue. So yes, I keep blue
Nice.
on me.
Now, what's your favorite book, title, and author? Go.
One of my favorite books is called, well, I already mentioned How to Win Friends and Influence People, which I could definitely put that into the running. So yeah, I'll stick with that. Because again, y'all need to go read that.
And don't worry, it will be on a special list, which we'll talk about in just a second. What is your favorite song? Go.
Ti. God, that's hard. I'm not gonna make that. Y'all gonna have to do a push up. It's so many. Oh my god. Yeah, that one. Yeah. But there's a song called T.I. Just Doing My Job. I've been listening to that. Basically, I have a workout playlist of like 80 songs. So I'm like, I've been jamming. But yeah, I know I ain't make the budget, but that's T.I. Just doing my, cause like, I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job. And of course he's talking about like, drug dealing and all this other stuff, but it's applicable to me because I'm like, yeah, man, I'm just out here doing my job. I don't got to do that, but I'm doing something.
Right.
Yeah.
You do your job that you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
What is your favorite relaxing activity? Go.
Oh, yeah. I actually massages.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I am easily bribed with massages.
Once a week is my preference. But my secret goal is, you said you're bribed. Okay. Well, I keep that in mind next time. I'm like, Lindsey, I got this 90-minute coupon for something I really need. But once a week is...
I'm all ears.
Yeah. My goal from a lifestyle design perspective is to have a massage, like an in-house, like a massage, like a spa room. And just have massage therapists come to the house. So you ain't got to set nothing up. Like it's already there. Like you come to me and it's just be that.
Yes. So listen, I love that goal. My goal is just regular massages. And sometimes I do better than others. And I was doing really good because I had a masseuse that actually came to the house because it's nice. One time I had a massage that was an hour away and it was like, dang, now I got to drive home. And like, that was no fun. It kind of ruined the experience. And it wasn't that there weren't any locals, but I was at an event. And I had signed up to support and I wasn't thinking about like, oh, dang, now I got to drive back type of thing. But I had a masseuse who came to the house, like she had her foldable table and all of that stuff. And it was so nice just having her come, set up, and then I didn't have to go anywhere afterwards. But she moved away in the fall. Like, I think it was September. She moved, and I was like, oh.
Well, there's these apps now that I'm not going to promote it here because we're not getting paid yet. But there are apps out there that will allow you to connect, kind of like Uber style, to massage therapists local in your area. They come. So I've used that at least once. And it wasn't bad. I think, throughout COVID, it's kind of hard because, to your point, you want to kind of have somebody consistent versus having like a random person like come each time or whatever. But eventually, once you find that person, hang on to them.
I get it. All about the we not promoting without that sponsorship check, especially when they got the coins. So message me that app, okay?
I will.
Let's see. What is your favorite place to travel? Go.
Favorite place to travel has been so far Puerto Rico. However, I'm on this campaign right now called 50 by 50. So I don't see myself revisiting many places unless it's really, really good because there's so many other places I want to see. So 50 by 50, I want to see 50% of the world by the age of 50. So I'm 37 right now. So that means I have a little over 90 countries to hit over the next like 13 years. So I don't think I'm going to be revisiting too many places, but, prioritizing going to these different countries.
Yes, I love that. I have not yet been to Puerto Rico,
No, no,
but
no
as you can
passport.
see, I got my scratch off travel map right there.
Yes.
I love like anytime it's time for a trip and it's like, oh, I've already scratched that one off. I'm gonna go, but I've already scratched that one off. I want to scratch off a new place.
Well, Puerto Rico,
So,
Puerto Rico is great because you can, you don't need a passport. Number one, if you live in the U.S. because it's, U.S. territory, but also, it's like it's someplace where you can be immersed in a Spanish speaking culture, but still be in the U.S. But everybody there speaks English too. So if you're wanting somewhere where you can like practice your Spanish, but have the safety net that everyone could still understand you if you still don't know like a lot of words, which was me. It's a great place to go.
and that's actually my goal for this year is to be 50% fluent by the end of the year. And so I'm like, I don't care whether it's a song, I don't care whether it's Duolingo, watching a movie, or talking with somebody. I need to practice some type of Spanish every single day. And so at least for the past, it's March 3rd. Oh, yes, I've been doing good this 2022. And we're going to keep it up. We're going to keep it up.
You should connect with me on Duolingo. Like, I'm on there so we can.
Yes. Look, we're going to have to make that happen so we can practice together. Now, thank you for playing First Class Favorites. And to the First Class family out there, make sure that you subscribe to our private Patreon community because we have our First Class Favorite Things list that is uniquely curated by all of our phenomenal guests. So you will see a running list of books to read because we got to keep our mind developing, as leaders, songs, because music, that is a whole love language. You got your playlist. And because we are all about our first class life and seeing the world, we got our travel list. You just added Puerto Rico. I don't think anyone said that yet. And then ways to relax because we're all about self-care. So if you want access to that running list that is so phenomenal, make sure that you subscribe to our private Patreon community. Meanwhile, let's get back into this discussion. And I have a special question for you.
Okay.
So living your first class life is all about the quality of life you are creating for yourself. It's not just some cutesy gimmick, but first class life is actually an acronym for the characteristics and skills that you want to embody into your lifestyle as much as possible so that you are able to create a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. And if you are new to the show and want to know what that acronym stands for, there are two ways you can find out. One, you can go back and watch episode 1 of the First Class Life show, or you can head to firstclasslifeshop.com and just buy the book where it explains it all, okay? So First Class Life, 10 key factors to creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness.
Love it.
Meanwhile, Mr. Brian, I want to ask you, which factor of first class life do you feel that you resonate with the most?
Yeah. So for me, it's very easy. I'll take the R for reflective. And so I think that, one of my favorite quotes is that, an unexamined life is not worth living. And so in general, It's kind of like you need to, like, I think we get, particularly in 2022, this era, we get seduced with just like doing stuff, and it's kind of like we're almost socially rewarded for kind of always being in motion, like, hustle, grind, even if we're not actively, nobody ever comes back. So like one of my biggest examples is like kind of like, this whole conversation, at least in the entrepreneur verse, around like 6-figure, 7 figures and stuff like that. So I think sometimes we get so seduced with like vanity metrics. So it's like, hey, I did 6 figures, but how much did you like keep? Like, how much did you invest? Is that is it 6 figures above and beyond what you did last year? Is that 6 figures going in the bank? Like, did you spend like 7 figures to make the 6 figures? So that like, there's all this stuff. And so I think, I just hired a new bookkeeper actually. And so, that's kind of why my mind goes to the financial because, I think how we measure things is equally important, if not more important than the initial goal itself. Like, we can hit a goal, but then, you look back and be like, okay, but at what cost? And sometimes it's not just like a financial cost. Some of us are driving so hard that we're pushing like our personal relationships away, or we're pushing like our family away, or, we again deprioritizing like our health in order to get certain things. And so I think we need to like holistically, I love how you phrased that earlier, Lindsey, like we need to holistically look at, all of the things that make us us, and really take time to reflect and ensure that, we're not just, looking good, but we also are actually have a true sense of forward progression in the things that really, really matter. So for me, that comes in the form of, making sure that I'm tracking. Like I want to track, like I want to know if I'm actually losing weight, or do I just feel skinny? Like I want to know, am I actually making money, or, and you can't tell that just by, looking at the bank account. Like you need actual like financial statements. I want to know if, I'm actually, showing up, for my friends and family. So I think reflection has been the biggest piece for me, because I don't want to get to the end of a life and just have like 80, 90 years of just doing stuff. Like, there are lessons embedded in the stuff that we do. But you have to take intentional time out to actually go back and grab those.
Yes. So amazing. That was great. That nugget was so great. Listen, whenever it's getting close to close, it's like, why? We could just keep going and going and going. But tell everyone about your business, how they can get your services. What is BSN? Because I know I mentioned it, but what is it? Let the First Class family know.
Absolutely. So Black Speakers Network, we are a global speaker development empowerment community, 15,000 strong. And the idea is, we're here to equip, connect, and inspire the next generation of Black professional speakers, including you, Lindsey, who, you've been a member for a while. And it's been great, having individuals like yourself who are, aggressively, focused on connecting to the audience that you're called to serve. So BSN is here for anyone who is a current or aspiring speaker, and you are looking for support in three areas. You're either looking for, training, it's answering the questions like, how do I get started as a speaker? How do I get paid? Like, how do I monetize my message? How do I actually, put together my signature resources? How do I craft an offer? In BSN, we have this framework called the 5 M's. Wrote a whole book about it. It's behind me, but it's called Speak Up, the ultimate guide to dominate your speaking industry. So this is like our speaker 101 textbook, if you will, that we recommend that everybody start with, because it goes through how to get clarity on your mission, your message, how to market, how to monetize, and how to manage your speaking business. And so that's number one, we provide training. Number two is resources. Everybody needs access to resources, people that can actually help you build your business, whether that's virtual assistants, access to getting websites built, photography, videography, speech coaching. Like we have an incredible network of resource partners. We call them platform partners that provide services that help you connect with your audience. And then the third thing that everybody's always looking for is access to speaking opportunities. And so with us, we have three ways of doing that. We curate speaking opportunities all throughout the week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we send out what we call speaker opportunity alerts. And those come directly to your inbox. You can apply to the ones that are interesting to you. Number two, we partner with other organizations like podcasts, like incredible platforms like First Class Life. So I think in general, when we have a network the size of ours, we have individuals who are always hosting their own programs, independently organizing their own events. And so we seek to kind of bring together that community, provide more visibility and more stages. And then lastly, from an opportunity perspective, is we have our own BSN signature experiences, things like our Lifestyle Design Summit that's coming up in April, where we can actually create our own stages, and those create opportunities as well. So if you're looking for training, resources, or access to speaking opportunities, then BSN is a great place to start. Anyone interested can head over to blackspeakersnetwork.com to learn more, and we look forward to supporting your journey.
Yes, and let me tell y'all, it is amazing. Like Brian said, I've been a member for some years, and those speaking opportunities, they come like clockwork. So whether you're aspiring or whether you are, well acclaimed in the speaking world, it is definitely the place to be for the connections, for the resources, for all of the things. So make sure that you sign up. So let everybody know how they can connect with you, how to reach you. Where are you living at on these internet streets?
Well, I always just tell people to Google me, and I'm not. And and it sounds funny. I was not in a facetious way, but honestly, the idea, Lindsey, is to have a presence, on all these different things. So whether you're Instagram, LinkedIn, I'm on TikTok, you can connect with me in a platform of your choice. I guarantee if you Google Brian J. Oles, this should be the goal for everybody, unless your name is like John Smith, I guess. But you want to be Googleable. So you can find me there. LinkedIn is probably the easiest way to connect directly if that's what you're looking for. But then Black Speakers Network, same thing. If you Google Black Speakers Network, you will absolutely find us. And I encourage folks to reach out. We have an incredible Facebook community that's free. Anyone can join. We're always sharing resources and information and inspiration there. So I encourage you to come check us out.
Yes. And listen, we appreciate you for being a fabulous guest on the First Class Life Show. And to my First Class family out there, thank you for tuning in, because I know you could be doing anything in the world, but you have spent your time here with us in the First Class Life studios, and we are grateful. We appreciate it. So make sure that you continue to go out there and maximize your impact and create your first class life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. Bye. Do you want to be surrounded by other high-achieving women who are working on their goals just like you? Are you looking for your circle that's passionate about their own growth yet still wants to see you shine? Do you desire to be supported through collaborations and connections instead of competition? Then Cowork and Chill is your place to be. Cowork and Chill is a hybrid of virtual co-working and virtual networking. It's a community of women who are striving to build living legacies. This is the space to create meaningful relationships with other equally yoked women where you're being poured into just as much as you pour out. So if you're looking for your crew for supportive accountability, then sign up today at coworkandchill.com. That's COWORKANDCHILL. coworkandchill.com. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, but please be sure to subscribe to the First Class Life Show. And don't forget to rate, leave a review, and join our private community so that we can continue to provide you with great personal development conversations to help you maximize your impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. You deserve it.